The girl who solved the impossible it all started on a rainy Monday in Silicon Valley. It's the kind of rain that taps lightly on your window, like it's trying to tell you a secret. Inside a glass tower filled with brilliant minds and billion-dollar ideas, one man sat alone, staring at an email that had just landed in his inbox. Sundar Pichai had seen thousands of strange things in his life, but this was different. The subject line was one word: help. No company name, no job title, no signature. Just a strange, half-broken line at the end that read, "She's only 11." Sundar blinked. He reread the email 3 times. It wasn't spam. It wasn't a prank. The message contained only one sentence: she solved the formula no one ever could, and now they're watching us. He didn't know who they were, but something about the message felt real, heavy, urgent. He'd spent his whole life solving problems with logic and patience. But this was something else. His hands hovered over the keyboard, unsure of what to do. Then he noticed the attachment. It was a photo of a notebook, page scrawled in purple pen, covered in mathematical symbols that looked almost like gibberish, except they weren't. Within seconds, he recognized a pattern. It was a modification of the Navier-Stokes equation, but twisted in a way he'd never seen. Sundar leaned back slowly, heart starting to race. This wasn't just smart. This wasn't just advanced. This was genius. And it came from an 11-year-old girl named Ira. 2 days later, Sundar was on a plane to a small town in North Dakota. Yes, that North Dakota. Population just under 5,000. It's the kind of place where people don't lock their doors, and the post office doubles as the town's main gossip hub when he arrived. The rain had followed him. It poured in sheets, turning roads into rivers and skies into steel. He found the house easily. It was the only one with 3 antennas, a satellite dish made out of scrap metal, and a wooden sign in the front that read, "Future in progress. Enter at own risk." A woman opened the door before he could knock. She looked exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept properly in years. But her eyes were sharp, alert. Her name was Ira's mother. She didn't offer him coffee. She didn't smile. She just said, "You saw it, didn't you?" Sundar nodded. How did she do it? Maya didn't answer right away. Instead, she led him down a narrow hallway to a room that looked more like a spaceship cockpit than a child's bedroom. Wires ran across the floor. Computer parts were stacked in towers. And in the middle, on a beanbag covered in unicorn stickers, sat Ira. She didn't look up. She was solving a puzzle on an old laptop using only the keyboard. No mouse, no screen. Sundar watched as her fingers danced like she was playing an invisible piano. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Then finally, she stopped. She looked up and said, "You're late?" Sundar smiled nervously. "You knew I was coming?" Ira shrugged. "You read the email? Which means you saw the sequence. Which means your curiosity was higher than your fear. It was a probability. 87%. Maya sighed from behind. She's been talking like that since she was 6. Used to scare the daycare workers. Sundar sat down across from her, trying to keep his voice calm. "Ira, do you know what you solved?" Ira blinked slowly, like a cat sizing up a stranger, of course. "It's the paradox that governs. Quantum turbulence. I made it work. But now they want it." He felt a chill. "Who?" Ira didn't answer. Instead, she handed him a small black notebook. Inside, in messy handwriting, was a second solution. Different from the first, more advanced, more dangerous. Sundar felt his mouth go dry. He recognized one of the equations. It was connected to gravitational time dilation. If it was correct, it could change everything: transportation, communication, even the way satellites orbit the Earth. This could change the world, he whispered. Ira looked at him with calm eyes that didn't belong to a child. Or end it. What happened next happened fast. Sundar asked Maya if they could leave. Not just the house, the town, maybe even the country. It was no longer safe. He didn't know who was watching, but Something deep in his gut told him they weren't just after knowledge, they were after control. But Maya hesitated. She's just a kid, she said. She hasn't even had a birthday party in 2 years, Yara interrupted. I don't need cake. I need protection. Sundar promised them safety. He called in favors. Real ones. Not the kind you make at parties, but the kind that make powerful. People nervous when your name shows up on their phones. They flew to an undisclosed location, a hidden facility where no phones were allowed, no names were spoken, and no one asked questions they didn't want honest answers to. It was there that Sundar saw IRA's third notebook. It wasn't just science. It was something else. Inside were notes about emotions, people, and behavior. Ira had been studying humans. Not just the way they act, but why. She had mapped out decision patterns, psychological triggers, and even had a chart predicting major political movements. Sundar couldn't believe what he was seeing, this girl. Didn't just have a high IQ. She had understanding. She had empathy. She had power. And then one night, 3 weeks later, everything changed. Sundar was walking back from IRA's lab when he noticed the lights flickering. Not just once, but in a pattern. A Morse code pattern. He remembered it from a survival class he took years ago. It spelled one word, run. Before he could react, the facility doors slammed shut. Alarms wailed. Systems crashed. Someone or something had found them. And IRA. She was gone. The silence between seconds for 17 minutes, everything stopped. No lights, no cameras. No sounds, except for a low hum in the air, like the world was holding its breath. Sundar stood in the hallway, frozen, not in fear, not yet. More like disbelief, the kind where your mind tries to lie to you just long enough to make reality easier to swallow. Ira was gone, not hiding, not lost. Gone. He ran, past the locked lab doors, past the dark conference rooms where people once whispered about futures that never happened, past the coded security stations where faces used to light up green dot. Nothing opened. Everything dead, except the cameras. They clicked to life in unison, showing only static. Then, for just 2 seconds, a frame appeared. Grainy, black and white. It showed Ira sitting calmly in a moving vehicle, no fear in her eyes, her only focus, and behind her the silhouette of a man in a wide-brimmed hat. The frame vanished, replaced by static again. And Sundar knew this wasn't random. This was designed, planned, every step, every move. And somehow, Ira had predicted it. Hours passed, the emergency team came, men with badges and clean shoes who spoke in code and walked like they owned the air. They asked Sundar 1,000 questions, but none of them mattered. All he could think about was IRA's third notebook and the page she ripped out before she vanished. The only page missing. They called her a runaway. The news never said her name. Just a young genius like that made her real. They said she might have been pressured, that she might have been unstable. They were wrong. Ira wasn't running. She was moving. There's a difference, too. Weeks later, a letter arrived at Sundar's apartment. Handwritten, no return address, sealed with wax. Inside was a simple message. Stop looking for me. Start listening. The pattern is already speaking. He held the note under a light. At the bottom, almost invisible, was a sequence of dots and dashes Morse again. He decoded it. It spelled one word, Japan. He didn't ask permission. He didn't tell anyone. Just left. Tokyo was cold that time of year. Crowds moved like water, fast and focused. Sundar blended in as best he could. He followed the trail Ira left, small clues, hidden in library records, old blog posts, even the metadata of a music file that hadn't been touched in 5 years. And finally he found her, not in a lab, not in a school, but in a tea shop. She was sitting at a corner table, sipping matcha, sketching something onto a napkin with the calm of someone who had never once questioned who she was. Soon, her approached slowly. She didn't look up. You're supposed to take longer, she said. I followed the pattern. She smiled, just a little. Then you're learning. The tea shop was small, quiet. walls covered in tiny drawings made by strangers. She added one a fractal spiral drawn with a cheap ballpoint pen. "They want the code," Sundar said. "They think you can rewrite gravity." Ira shook her head. Gravity was never the problem. He leaned closer. "Then what is?" She looked at him for the first time. "People. They keep trying to own what they don't understand." There was no arrogance in her voice, just sadness, maybe a little hope, tucked deep behind her words. "So what now?" he asked. Ira folded the napkin and tucked it into his pocket. "You keep asking questions, I'll keep moving." "Where will you go?" "To the next place they won't look." Before he could say anything else, the bell above the shop door rang. 2 men entered, sharp suits, silent steps. One of them had no eyebrows. Ira stood. "Don't follow me this time." "I have to. Then you'll lose everything." And just like that, she was gone again, slipping out the back door, disappearing into the crowd. As if the world itself bent to let her pass unnoticed, the men didn't follow her. They watched. Sundar instead. That night, Sundar opened the napkin. Not numbers, not equations, but a map of emotions. 12 core feelings, each branching out into hundreds more. Connected with arrows, loops, and codes he barely understood, and at the center, circled twice, was one word. Regret. Asterisk the edge of invisible things somewhere in the world. Someone was lying, and Sundar could feel it. It wasn't a loud kind of lie. Not the kind that shouts and breaks things. This one was soft, clever, quiet, like a whisper sewn into a bedtime story. And the worst part? He didn't know if it was him. After Ira disappeared again, Sundar didn't sleep. Not properly. He stayed in a small rented apartment above a bookstore in Osaka, where the walls were thin and the dreams thinner. Every night. He sat with the napkin she left behind her emotional map. He studied it until his eyes blurred, not because he thought it was a puzzle, because he knew it wasn't. It was a warning. Regret circled at the center. Why that emotion? Not fear, not love, not hope. Regret was at hers, or his. On the 4th night, he received a signal. Not a message, not a phone call, a signal. The bookstore's power flickered exactly 7 times. No one else noticed, but Sundar knew patterns. His mind lived in them. He rushed downstairs, scanned the old security panel. There it was, 7 short pulses on the power line. Binary, when translated. It formed coordinates to a place he never wanted to return to. The facility, the one she vanished from, abandoned. Now silent, overgrown with vines and classified dust. He told himself not to go. He went anyway, inside. It felt like time had rusted. Desks still cluttered with coffee cups and half-solved whiteboards. A chess game mid-match. Untouched, but when Sundar reached Ira's lab, he found something new. A mirror, placed directly in the center of the room, not part of any original setup. No frame, no stand. Just a slab of glass, resting upright. He approached carefully. Nothing special, just his reflection until it blinked. He froze. The reflection blinked. He didn't. And then the reflection smiled. Not cruelly, not kindly, just knowingly. Sundar reached forward. The glass felt warm. Beneath it, a drawer opened by itself. Inside was a single cassette tape. No label. Just a faint engraving on the plastic. "Play me if you remember." Back in Osaka, he borrowed an old cassette player from the bookstore owner. The man handed it over with a wink and said, "That's a memory machine, you know. Careful it doesn't rewind life." Sundar smiled, but only with his mouth. He went back upstairs, pressed play. And Ira's voice filled the room. "If you're hearing this, you made the wrong choice." Her voice wasn't afraid. It was calm. More adult than it had any right to be. "You were supposed to protect the equation, not chase the girl. But you couldn't help yourself. You wanted to know why. You always do. And that's how they found you." The tape crackled. "They're not after me anymore." They're after what you know now. So here's your choice. A pause. Follow the next signal. Or destroy this tape. Forget me and go home. Your real home. Where people love you and no one vanishes through mirrors. Another pause. This is the part where you ask if it's worth it, if I'm worth it. I can't answer that. Only regret can. Click that the tape ended. Sundar sat there, still holding the napkin in one hand and the cassette player in the other. He remembered the way Ira looked at the world, like she could see behind it, not just through it, but beyond it. He thought of the people who once told him that curiosity was a strength, and the others who said it was a curse. 2 hours later, he burned the napkin. He threw the cassette into the river. He erased everything he knew about Ira from his encrypted files. And then, he bought a plane ticket to Russia because that's where the next signal was coming from. And some lies are worth chasing, even if they break you. What Sundar didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that Ira wasn't just waiting. She was watching, and someone else was, too. Someone who used to work for a government that doesn't exist on paper. Someone who once built machines to listen to human hearts, then silenced them. And that man, he had Ira's second notebook. Ghosts That Speak in Kotarusha was cold, but not just outside. The kind of cold that seeps into your thoughts, slowing them down until even your memories feel like they're wearing coats. Sundar stepped off the train in a town that didn't show up on maps. A town where every streetlight flickered just a little too perfectly, and everyone looked like they were pretending to be ordinary. He walked past rows of gray buildings, all shaped the same, all watching him like they had eyes, but he didn't stop walking because the signal was here. And so it was something else, something older than Ira, something that knew his name before he ever said it. The man he met didn't offer a name. He had a scar across his left cheek and eyes like ice over deep, water clear, but hiding something underneath. They sat in a room with no furniture except 2 chairs and a table that might have been metal once. Before the rust took it, the man slid a folder across the table. "You thought the girl was the anomaly," he said, "but she's just the echo." Sundar opened the folder and found himself staring at a photo from 12 years ago. He was younger, standing in front of a chalkboard with 3 other people. One of them was my Ira's mother, and the 4th, the man sitting across from him now. "You worked with us," the man said. "Before you left, before you forgot." Sundar blinked. "I never worked for you, didn't work for us. You worked beside us until she was born." The man leaned forward. "You think genius happens by accident?" Something cracked inside Sundar's mind. Not a memory, Dada. Pressure, like something trying to surface. A name, a place, a conversation in a white hallway, the sound of a baby crying, the weight of a decision he never remembered making. "What did we do?" Sundar asked. The man didn't answer. He simply handed over a device-sphere, no bigger than a golf ball, glowing faintly from within. "She encoded her memory into this," the man said. "Before she ran, it can't be copied. It can only be seen. Once. Why give this to me? Because she left it for you." The man stood, "And because after this, you won't be the same." Alone in a borrowed hotel room with paper-thin walls and water-stained ceilings, Sundar activated the device, and the world shifted. He wasn't sitting anymore. He was inside the memory. He saw a young IRA, barely 7, in a room filled with lights and machines. Not playing, building. Her mother nearby, talking to someone just out of frame, and then dash him, younger, standing with his arms crossed, face tense, saying something he couldn't hear. Ira turned, looked directly at him, and smiled. "You'll forget." This, her voice echoed through the room, even though her lips didn't move. "But don't worry. Memory is like gravity. It always pulls you back." The scene dissolved, the room returned. Sundar sat alone, sweating, shaking, and knowing everything had changed. She wasn't just a girl, he discovered. She was someone he helped make, not biologically, not scientifically, but purposefully. They had built a system to teach intelligence faster than nature allowed. Ira was the first and the last. He wanted to scream, but what do you scream when you were the architect of your own heartbreak? He stared out the window. Snow fell, soft and slow, like static from the sky. Hours passed, he didn't move. Then a message blinked on the cheap. Hotel TV? Not the news, not a channel, just a message. She's here. Bring the notebook. Have 12 hours. But Sundar didn't have the notebook. Not anymore, because someone else did. Someone who never stopped watching. Someone who once promised to protect Ira. But kept too many secrets in her shadow, Maya. And somewhere, in a room with no windows, Ira sat in front of a chessboard. One piece left a pawn, but it wasn't hers. She was waiting for someone else to move. And this time, she wouldn't be the Ira. One running. Asterisk, the mother of the equation snow, stopped falling. But the silence it left behind was louder than any storm. Sundar stood at the train station. The one from Ira's memory. Not because he needed to be there, but because the coordinates led here. Again, same place, different purpose. He didn't expect her to show up. He certainly didn't expect Maya. But there she was, walking through the fog like it owed her something. No coat. No bag. Just eyes that had run out of tears a long time ago. She didn't speak right away. She sat beside him on the icy bench and stared at the empty tracks, and then she said it. It's soft and simple. You should have burned the second notebook, too. Sundar turned, throat tight. You knew? Maya nodded. I helped her write it. He blinked. But it was her discovery. No, she whispered. It was her choice. There's a difference. They sat in the cold, quiet space between everything said and everything meant. Then Sundar asked the question that had haunted every quiet moment since Ira vanished. Was she built to do this? Maya turned, and for the first time in years, Sundar saw a flicker of the woman who used to laugh too loudly in quiet rooms. No one's built for anything, she said. We just teach them how to survive. The truth was uglier than either of them wanted. Ira wasn't a project. She was a consequence. Years ago, Dor and Maya had worked on an experimental cognitive architecture, a blueprint to accelerate neural pathways in children. It was never meant to be used until it was, and when it worked. When Ira began solving things no one else could, the world wanted answers, but not the kind you ask with kindness, the kind you ask with threats, she knew, Maya whispered, even when she was little. She knew the world wouldn't forgive her for being more. We wanted to protect her, Sundar said. Asterisk no, Maya snapped, voice cracking. We wanted to own her. Silence again. Longer this time. Like even the wind didn't want to interrupt. Maya reached into her coat and pulled out a black envelope. Not sealed, not labeled, just old. Worn and trembling slightly in her hand, she gave me this 2 years ago. Maya said, told me to wait until the world broke, then find you. Has it broken? Sundar asked. Look around. Inside the envelope was a single page handwritten in Ira's exacting script. Not equations, not predictions, a letter. If you're reading this, it means you chose the hard path. I'm proud of you. You taught me that the world isn't fixed, that even pain can be rewired. But now it's your turn. You'll need to choose. Protect me or protect what I've built. You can't do both. People will come. They already are. Some want to help, others want to erase. I've made my move. The rest is yours. Irano riddle. No map. Just choice. And that was the worst kind of test. Maya stood. You still have time, she said. To do what? To finish the story without becoming the villain. She left. Sundar didn't move. He sat on the bench until night fell. Until the lights buzzed overhead like ghosts with old batteries. Until the train came. But didn't stop. Across the ocean, Ira was watching everything, but not from a bunker. Not from a lab. From a classroom. Small. Tucked away. Quiet. She wasn't teaching math. She was teaching silence. Teaching 5 other children each like her. each carrying a different version of brilliance, how to disappear before someone tries, to turn them into a trophy or a weapon. In the room was a small chessboard, one pawn still left, but beside it now, a queen, and on the window, written in fog, "He'll come, or he won't." Either way, we continue. As Ira was. No longer hiding, she was planting something new. Not genius, not data, but hope. Quiet, steady, dangerous asterisk. The apology that rewrote time with world didn't explode. No fire, no bullets, no secret satellites falling from the sky, just a soft rain over a quiet village where no one knew the name Ira, and that was the point she had made herself, small enough to be free. Sundar arrived alone. No suitcase, no phone, no plan, just an old memory folded in his coat pocket and a question he'd been carrying for too long. Am I here for her or for me? He found the building without asking for directions. It was the only one with music leaking through the walls. Not loud, not perfect, just enough to feel like someone inside was still trying to feel something when he walked through the door. She was already waiting older now. Not by years, but by weight. Not a girl anymore. Not quite an adult. Just a person who had learned what it meant to lose things and still choose to love. Anyway, she didn't stand, she didn't speak, just nodded to the seat across from her. So he sat and waited until she broke the silence with something too soft to be anything but true. "I used to hate you." Sundar didn't flinch. "You had every right." The clock ticked once. She leaned back. "But now, I just don't want to become you." That hurt. Not like a knife. More like gravity, pressing down harder than usual. He nodded. "Then don't." They stared at the chessboard between them. Same pieces. Different game. Ira moved first. A pawn. Not out of habit, out of hope. "You didn't come to protect me," she said. Double quotes. "No." "You came to let me go." "Yes." And he did. Not with words. Not with grand speeches or promises. He reached into his coat and handed her a small device, the only backup copy of her second notebook and his only leverage left in the world. She held it for a while, not like a prize, more like an apology, then dropped it into her tea. It fizzed, short-circuited, dissolved, gone. They played the game in silence. No winner, just two people who had once believed in brilliance more than balance. And now, they believed in space. Space to feel small. Space to not be extraordinary. Space to begin again. As soon I left the village, a child passed him on a bicycle. Not Ira, someone new, holding a sketchbook on the back of the book, scribbled in purple ink. Mistakes are just maps with coffee stains. Back in the city, Sundar returned to a life with fewer headlines. He taught a night class no one recorded, read books no one reviewed, smiled more, regretted less. Ira. She stayed hidden, but not afraid. Her work became stories, fiction, allegory, things. Small enough to fly under the radar, and big enough to find the hearts that needed them. One day, someone would ask how she knew so much about loss and love and the danger of knowing too much. And she'd answer with the simplest, saddest truth. Because someone tried to turn me into a secret instead of a story. She became the story instead. The end.